Hi, everybody.
Good evening. We're so excited to be able to be with you all again. Thank you for joining us at this later time. We are super excited to talk about finding work that is fulfilling and worth pursuing.
Work for the average person, we spend so much time at our jobs, it seems like more time than we think is a lot of times reasonable. The typical 8-hour-a-day job really is more like 10 to 12 hours if you're thinking about commute time and other responsibilities. So it's such a big part of our lives that I think I'm certainly passionate about it and trying to find work that is fulfilling to you. And I think, depending on what statistics you look at, they say, 60 to 70% of people don't even like the jobs that they're doing. And that's like so sad, especially like I said, given the amount of time that we spend. If you think about the amount of time you're going to spend at a job during your life, that's just a really sad number.
Yeah,
and not really something that we really want to help with our No More Some Days. This is such a big part of that.
Oh, I totally agree. I know for me, this is just huge. I've just seen it even in my own life. You can tell when you're working in a job that you don't love and that you don't find that kind of fulfillment in, and that you're not like, you're not waking up and like, yes, I can't wait to do that thing. But when you are in a job, and I've been privileged to be in this situation where I have had jobs that I just love and I'm excited about and I'm passionate and I'm fired up and I'm helping people and I see where I'm going, it makes all the difference in the world.
And I think that's a good starting point, because one of the things we wanted to talk about first was asking. We've talked some about asking good questions is a really good starting point for a lot of things. And we want to talk about, why are you doing the work that you're doing?
Exactly.
And so you kind of touched on that you've been privileged to do jobs that you want, but there's also a flip side of that you've also kind of put yourself in positions to do jobs that you've wanted to do.
Right.
And so I think, like for me, starting that question of like, why are you in the job you have now? Or maybe you're not even working yet, but you will be the next few years. Why are you pursuing that course that you're on right now? Right. Is it because your parents wanted you to do that? Is it because you know somebody who's done that job? Is it because you think that's all you can do? There's a lot of questions that you need to be asking yourself.
I totally agree. I think I've even seen that in my own life again, where why I'm doing this particular job, or you could even apply it to like a degree or a life path in general. I'm doing this to pursue that. It could be that thing that you're pursuing, or the reasons why you're doing that, is because of an outside influence, because somebody else expects that of you. Or because you just don't feel like you could do anything else. You don't really have any skills in other areas. And so I think a lot of the time we allow these outside forces to influence our dreams and our life path, in that sense of where we're wanting to go, instead of choosing that from within and saying, I'm going to pursue this and I'm going to figure out a way to make this my work. So I think that is really, really important to start with why. Start with, why am I doing the work that I'm doing? And if I'm not happy with that work, what's my next step? What do I do to pursue something that I do want to do, that fulfills me, that helps me to have a purpose that I'm excited and energized by, where I'm surrounded by people that I want to be surrounded with, or that environment, Yeah,
and I think that starts with understanding that that's possible. I think at least, sometimes when we do these videos, you don't know if we're speaking from our perspective, and you think that, okay, there's probably other people that have that similar perspective, but it's possible that this is just unique to me. But at least when I think back, you kind of think this is what work is. Work is something that is hard. It's something that is difficult. It's something that's not enjoyable.
Right. Okay.
It's something that there's going to be pressure. You're not going to like your bosses, probably. Your coworkers are going to have to deal with politics. And so I think a lot of us have this relationship with work that we assume, okay, I'm going to have a job that is probably, there's going to be a lot of bad parts of it. And there's only, for the lucky few are really going to enjoy what they're doing or really love their career or are passionate. And so I think the first thing is understanding that that's not reality.
That's true.
And, I think, in America, at least, we're really tied, we've really had a background in the Protestant work ethic, which is very, again, you do what needs to be done, you work hard, but there's a component to work that is not enjoyable. And I think there is always, I'm not trying to say that work is always going to be fun, it's going to be the best, but there is work can still be hard and be enjoyable.
Yeah, that's true.
Work can still be difficult and challenging and still fulfilling. And so in order to even open up the possibility to have a job or career or business you want, I think you first have to change your mindset to broaden the scope of what work can be. If you have that thought that work is always going to be something that's hard, painstaking, and you're always going to be it's always going to be a challenge, it's always going to be a battle.
So how would you say that you can start to change that mindset of, okay, this is really hard, work is always going to be hard, there's no way that I can do what I really love? How do you change that mindset,
I think, there's several things. We've talked a lot about mentorship and watching people who are successful, but all the people that you're seeing who have been successful in what you want to do, obviously they're proof already that that's possible. So you find ways to prove what you want is correct. Yeah. So if I'm wanting to prove that I can start a business of some kind, I look for examples of that in that genre or in that area. And so I think that's one thing. And then two is, understanding, like we've talked about too, that maybe right now that's not possible. And we're going to talk about stepping stones in a little bit, but just because it's not possible now doesn't mean it's not possible in the future. So I don't have to go from 0 to 100 right now. I can go from 0 to 5, then 5 to 10. And so taking small steps in that right direction is going to be important. And then also, maybe I think one of the most challenging things is people our age have started families mostly, or they've already have commitments. Maybe they're paying student loans. Sure. And so their dreams look even harder to fulfill because they already have commitments. And that's what we've talked about before, making sure our lifestyle, we're living in a way that allows for those dreams to be a reality and aren't a hindrance. That the mortgages we have, the student loans we have, the car payments we have aren't hindering us from pursuing the things that we want to.
Yeah, I think, you bring up so many good points about, taking those steps to living the lives that we want. And it takes a conscious effort. I'm not just going to wake up one day and be like, yeah, I believe it's possible now. I actually have to do things to change the way that I think. I actually have to open my mind up to the possibility of whatever. And that might mean, rejecting what other people around you are saying even. We were talking about this in a little bit of a different context last night, but, sometimes when we've grown up in a certain circle of influence, and that circle has a certain set idea of things, then sometimes if we're introduced to something that might challenge that, we're closed off to it because we grew up in that kind of circle, and then that limits us from maybe seeing a different perspective of something. And I think the same is true here. Changing your mindset in this situation is kind of rocking the boat in some ways, and I think especially for some people who haven't challenged the way that they've been thinking or the work that they've been doing or anything. And I think that's huge. And so again, we want to be the support for you guys, and it may mean, okay, we don't listen to some of the people that we have been listening to, or we appreciate what they're saying. It's not totally ignoring them, but it's not allowing that to be an influence on what we're wanting to do with our lives, and instead saying, okay, I'm going to find proof. I'm going to go out there and not just listen to somebody who thinks that they know about whatever I want to pursue. I'm going to actually go and find somebody who's doing that thing that I want to pursue and really talk to them. Where did you start? What kind of things can I do? And I know we talked about this with mentorship, but I really think it takes a willingness to think outside of where you are used to thinking for most people, I think.
And I think that starts with rethinking the whole paradigm that we're used to. I mean, we are like in a, this whole COVID situation has brought to light that we're in a changing society, we're in changing times. The view of, just go to college and get your degree and then work for a large corporation, that's safe.
Yeah.
That's going to be safe for you. You're going to have a
Right,
retirement.
right.
You're going to get the gold watch at the end.
The 40 years.
They're gonna, and that's viewed as safe because it was in previous generations. That was a good decision to make. But I think, I'm past college, but if I was entering that realm now, I would seriously reconsider whether or not that was the right route for me to go, especially taking on some of the student loan debt that you see, that you're hamstringing yourself for so long. And we really need to start rethinking, is this really the right decision for me to go to college, for me to try to work for a large corporation? And is that really more risky than doing something on my own or learning a craft? Because, you've seen through this COVID that I work for a very large corporation and there's been cuts. There's been things that were changed on a dime like this. You thought your 401k was safe and then, in 30 seconds, it's gone. Or, so things in these large corporations change just as quickly. And you really understand that more during these times, that it wasn't as safe as you were led to believe, or that you convinced yourself to believe was the case.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing that more than ever. And especially people, millennial, Gen, what is it called? Y or Z? I don't even know. We're Y, right? Okay, Z. Anyways, the people younger than us, are especially going to be facing this more and more. I mean, they already say like the average person now that's around our age, like they've already had however many jobs, right? I don't know what the number is, but it's several. It's, it used to be one job, you stay there for 40 years, right? But now it's, you're going to a different job every, 3 to 5 years, maybe even less. And not just because you couldn't stay in that job or whatever, we're not talking about that, but that's like the stepping stone to the next job and leveraging each job, and I mean, all kind of stuff. Or burnout, or, I mean, we're seeing a lot of different things. And then now more than ever, during times like this, we're seeing, people picking up side hustles or starting their own businesses, because at the end of the day, the 40-year dream doesn't really exist anymore like it used to. And so,
yeah, but even let's think about that a second. The 40.
Okay.
Let's say you worked for a company for 40 years, nice pension, whatever. I don't even know if pensions exist really anymore. You have a nice 401k.
They do, but
and you're 65, maybe you're 72 now, but you have a pretty nice retirement account. You're 65, let's say you're 68, whatever. Then you have like 10, 12 more years most likely.
Right.
So even then that's the whole thing with what we're talking about. That isn't,
Right.
If you've spent 40 years in a job that you didn't even like or get much fulfillment out of, and it was a grind every day, and you were nervous about your position, you didn't know how your bosses felt about you didn't know, there was really no stability. Even if you make it through that 40 years and the
What do you
retirement,
have to look forward
what
to?
do you have? You have 10 more years at a time in
Or
your life
more.
when you probably are the least healthy you're going to be, and the least able to do the things that you want to do. So and that's what I think to try to get over the fear of doing things, we need to look at risk a different way.
Yeah.
And one of the ways I think, and maybe you'll have some ideas that we can do that, is thinking about the things that you've done in your life so far that were successful. If you looked back at the beginning of those, there was probably some risk involved for you to do that.
Oh, I'm sure. Absolutely.
And I was trying to think this afternoon about different things, and there's probably some exceptions. You have that didn't involve risk, but for the most part, something that you succeeded at, that you went out and accomplished, there was probably an element of risk at the beginning, but you don't view it when you've succeeded. You kind of forget about that part.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so, but we need to start deconstructing that and seeing, okay, well, for the classic, for the bigger risk, the bigger reward.
Right.
But rethinking what risk really is and how, there's ways to mitigate risk, but really looking at that in a different way maybe would be helpful.
I mean, I don't know. For some reason, like the word risk sounds kind of like almost like gamble to me in my mind. I don't know why. But so, I mean, even if you use a different word, like there's fear at the beginning of something, You know, like there's going to be fear, but we forget about that once we're doing the thing. I always think about like getting up and doing a presentation, or for me, like performing, or, you know, once I get up there, and I think it takes like your body like 7 minutes to adjust or something. Once you get up there and you've been up there for a little bit, it's like that fear goes away, and then at the end you're like, oh great, it's over, I'm feeling good, like I did this and I did that. And I think that's the same whenever we start any new project, that it is going to be scary at the beginning. It is. But like you said, is it worth taking a little risk or a little step outside of your comfort zone, having a little bit of fear, so that you can do something that you're passionate about, that gets you fired up, that you are helping people, that you look back on your deathbed and you're like, man, I am so glad I did that. Yeah. Instead of, you know, that pain of regret. And they talk about, I know there's some sort of podcast or something I listened to, and they were talking about like the main things that people, or maybe it was a YouTube video, but like the main things that people like regret on their deathbed. Yeah. And it's always taking more chances. Like, it's not necessarily we're not talking about doing things that are like really risky behavior. We're just talking about like maybe starting that conversation, or sending that email, or starting that business, or, you know, I don't know, doing something that you've never done before. You know, I think it can be really simple, and it can start with small ways of doing that. If you guys remember, you've been friends with me on Facebook for a while, I did this like 100 days of things that scare me. And there were some things in there that were really scary for me, really scary, and just random or to me like weird in my mind. And when you start making that a habit of doing new things, guess what? It's like a rubber band. As you do it more, it gets easier and easier and easier and easier, and your comfort zone starts to slowly expand and expand. Yeah. And I think it's so worth it in the end.
Well, I think what you were doing in that exercise was building mental toughness,
yeah,
and resiliency.
Sure.
And there's a program, it's called 75 Hard, that is a component, is you're doing hard things that are challenging, that take courage, that take dedication. And what you're doing, like what Megan similarly was doing, was building up resilience, building up confidence, building up competence at whatever you're doing. So you're training your brain to think about situations differently. You're
Absolutely.
Training your mindset to look at things differently, so that the next time that you come across a situation that requires courage, you can remember, hey, I did so and so back then and it turned out okay. And you're able to do it more easily, and it builds. There's stepping stones, and what we're talking about here is the same way. So like let's talk about, you've kind of, I think most people, if not all people, there's something that you want to do and you know it, and maybe you haven't told people, or maybe only a few people know. And again, it doesn't have to be starting the next Apple. It doesn't have to be starting the next Google. If it is, that's great. That's fine.
That's awesome.
That's
More
awesome.
power to you. I love it.
But it could be, starting making T-shirts. It could be whatever. It doesn't even have to be business oriented, but there's something that you want to do that you haven't done. Mm-hmm. And don't, like Megan was saying, don't wait. You can already look into the future. We've talked about that a lot. You can look into the future and say, if I didn't do this, I would regret it. So why not start? So
take the first step. Like write 10 pages, or for 10 minutes, not 10 pages, but write for 10 minutes. Like it doesn't have to be the whole book. That's what we're saying.
I mean, I know today we're talking more about career-wise, but so what are some of the things that you could do to start looking into changing a career that you don't find fulfilling right now? If you are in that 9 to 5, or maybe you're not working right now, what are some things that you can kind of step into to start doing?
Well, I think let's get the obvious out of the way. Start exploring, kind of like what we were talking about a couple of episodes ago. Just start trying different things. I think there's some amazing things that you can do just in journaling or in talking it through with a friend. Again, with what are my strengths? What are things that interest me? Even just writing out, like one really good exercise I did, if you'll notice on the description on my page, I put 5 words. And that was just 5 words that I felt like really helped to identify who I was and what I associated with. And so you could even do that. Like, what are 5 words? What are 5 areas that I really resonate with, that I really want to make an impact in? What am I passionate about? Maybe it's certain like ministries or you know, different passion projects, or you know, like something where you want to help like animals, or you know, people who've been in sex trafficking. I don't know, like it could be all these different things that on sort of like the non-for-profit side. Or maybe it's you're really passionate about products, making things and helping people, resolving issues that way. I mean, it could be a million different things, but what happens is we say, well, that's not urgent. And we're asking you, just set the timer, set your Alexa or whomever, and sit down and just write, or talk to that friend and just time it, and see what comes up. You know, see what kind of things interest me. And you could start asking yourself questions like, what are things that get me excited or get me fired up or whatever. And I think just starting there, and then, okay, find somebody who has a connection with the SPCA or whatever in your area, or you know, whatever that looks like, that you're starting to make those connections, you're starting to work in that direction. Maybe it's volunteering, maybe it's, you know, like I said earlier, writing for 10 minutes every day, you know, finding ways to start to navigate that. And I think that's already going to help you feel more like you're taking steps toward the thing that you want to do, versus, well, it's just a stream, it's just this thing that's in the background. And, you know, I think that something that's really coupled with this is confidence. You know, a lot of the time, like, let's say that I wanted to paint. You know, I don't really have much experience with that. So I might go, well, I don't really have a lot of experience. Or what if, you know, I've only ever shown my paintings to my best friend. I've never really shown them to anybody else. We allow things like that to kind of dull our confidence, instead of saying, okay, I'm going to take a painting class. I'm going to talk with somebody who is an artist full-time or whatever, and I'm going to start asking them, what did they do? What are steps that I can take to start to move in the direction that I want? But instead, we allow our confidence to kind of get knocked down with that, and not take that chance to just try.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, you know, we see people who we deem confident and we believe they're born that way, or they're just embodied with this supreme confidence. And, you know, maybe some people do have the tendency or are more confident in certain ways, but there's something that I really started thinking about, and I'm sure somebody else has said it in the same way. I'm hopefully not stealing this, but I'm calling it the confidence loop, which is, it starts, you have to have courage first to do it.
Yes.
Then that builds competence. So
Yes.
you're going to grow in your skill, whatever you're doing.
Right.
And only once you get competent at it, then you get confidence. And
Right.
so then that loop can go back to starting a new skill or challenging yourself in another way, and you go back
Absolutely.
to that courage. So like nobody, you know, whatever skill you think of, you know, athletes, musicians, they didn't just come out of the womb confident in that ability. It
Right.
took that courage to start. It took the hours of practice to get competent. And only after that did they start to build that confidence that you see now. That again is the end result that we're seeing, and we're applying, oh, I can't be like them, but we're seeing the end result. We're
Right.
not seeing the beginning. And
Well, and going along with that though, can I just say really
Yeah.
quick, why don't you, this is an exercise that's been challenged with me, why don't you write out all the things that you've accomplished in your life? When you do that, you're like, whoa, and then you didn't come out of the womb doing all those things. You had to just do what he was just talking about to get to the point where you are now. Let's say you're in a job that you're doing whatever, I don't know. Let's say you're in a management position. You didn't start out in management. Maybe you worked on the floor. You know, like you started somewhere and then now you are where you are. So remember that, you know, when you're starting something new, yeah, you're going to be maybe low on the totem pole, if you will, but you're going to work up to where you want to go, just like you did in other areas of your life.
yeah. So I think one thing for people that are already at a 9-to-5 job, but are at not something that they like, the one way to really try to experiment and explore is figure out ways in your current job to scratch that itch. So you're gonna have to be creative with this, and you're gonna have to probably put yourself out there, and you're gonna have to make some connections and network to find out how you're gonna do that. And it's gonna take some time, but I think in a lot of jobs that's really, really possible, which is really cool. So let's just say that you wanna help people with their resumes, or you wanna help people interview. Well, and that's totally not what you do at your job. We'll make some connections with HR, see if you can sit in on some interviews, see if you can talk to some of the people in that department to learn about how they do interviews, how they do resumes, what they're looking for. And I mean, especially the larger company you work for, the more possibilities there are to scratch that itch and see, do I even like that?
Right.
Do I even want to pursue that? But without, again, you're minimizing the risk, so you're making it less scary. So you're giving yourself the opportunity, and you're giving yourself the okay to pursue that, because you're telling your mind, hey, it's not really that much of a risk, and I can say yes or no. And so you're making that risk a lot smaller in your mind to allow yourself to take that. So I would really encourage people who already have a job, but you don't like what you're doing, but you know, okay, there's 2 or 3 things that I would like to consider.
Right.
Figure out ways to try to do that, whether it's shadowing people where you are now, or like I said, trying to even get more specific and talk to those people and make connections with those people to see if you can learn more about what they're doing and how that might be incorporated into what you'd like to do.
Well, and also with education, if you want to go step into an HR position, is it really necessary for you to go back and get another degree? It may not be. And so, starting to ask that question, we're not against education. We both have our masters. So we're not against education, but we're trying to ask the question, what is really necessary for your goal? Is it really necessary to have a certain degree, or could you get a certification? Is it really necessary for you to go back and get your master's right now for the thing you want? It may be necessary down the line, but it may not be necessary in the position you are now, or whatever that looks like. And so we don't want to, discourage people from education, but there is something to be said for, okay, asking around, okay, what did you do? What kind of things will I be needing for this particular position or for this sort of role? And often too, kind of along the lines of what Matt was just saying, when you start to see what they do day to day, or when you start to learn what that looks like, the intricacies of it, because it's one thing to kind of see the outside and maybe it looks really shiny, you may realize that's not actually what you want to do. Someone close to me in my life did that. They really shadowed and got to know some people in a certain role. And then they said, oh wait, that's not actually what I want to do. I don't want to be behind a desk all day. I actually want to be out doing things. So they got a slightly different degree because they wanted to pursue something where they were doing something more hands-on, but use it like almost an identical degree. But again, they wanted to be hands-on, with the people, doing the things rather than sitting behind a desk and doing more paperwork. So, that may be you may want to do the behind the desk thing, or you may want to be out doing the thing, and it's just a slightly different role, a slightly different degree, whatever it is. And I think getting to know those intricacies is so important, and it does take that risk away. Yeah. Also, I think your point about, after the quote 40 years, a lot of people, I feel like, kind of have this idea, and just from talking to people, I'm not in this category myself yet, but that once you reach a certain age, it's sort of like, well, I'm done, my life's pretty much set, or I can't really do anything else. And I just want to tell you that is a lie you're telling yourself, because if you are 65 or 68 or whatever the age that he was just talking about, you can start something totally new, and you likely still have many years ahead of you, especially with the average age going up. So, and it's hard on your body and your brain when you don't have something that you're working toward. It's much more fulfilling. You're living a more joyful life when you're doing work that you love. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're making money at it or not. It's just something that helps you to get excited, fired up. You're helping people, you're making things, whatever it is, but it's something where you're pursuing something that you love, and that can start later in life. It does not have to be when you're young at all.
For sure. So any closing comments? Or I think, we didn't talk about this much, but another low risk thing to do is start something on the side. Like Megan mentioned this earlier, is side hustles are big now, that can incorporate a lot of different things. But taking something that while you're still working your 9 to 5, that you low risk, low investment up front, to test it out and see how do you really like doing that. Whether it could be any kind of business that you're really trying to see and test and experiment. And I think that's another really awesome way that I'm doing that in several aspects. And maybe we'll talk about more in another episode, but that's another aspect to make the risk low and see, really, is this something I really want to pursue? Is this really something that I thought it would be before you quit your 9 to 5 and it has to work?
Right. And I think this is an excellent way, because you're still bringing in your 9 to 5 income. You're not having to risk that. Mm-hmm. You don't want your family to be suffering or anything like that, your household income to be suffering, but you want to be able to pursue some other things. And we talked about this several episodes ago, that there's often little pieces of time in our day that we don't even realize, where we're scrolling social media or sitting in traffic, where we could actually be doing some work that is, kind of testing the waters, bringing in some extra income if that's what you need at this time or whatever, and really exploring other options. That's just a great way. I think you said it perfectly. So you can tell we're not fired up about this at all.
I mean, there's a huge, I think, like I said, when I see those percentages, and maybe that's because I'm more passionate about it because I'm living that, just to be honest. Now, I'm blessed to have the job I do. I'm very blessed to have it. There are some great aspects of it, but it's not what I love to do. And so to know that there's 70% other people, if not more, that are living that life, and I really want to see some change with our generation and hopefully next, that you don't have to just do what is the norm. You don't have to do the standard thing. You can make money doing what you like, or at least you find fulfillment in a more fulfilling way. And that is possible, and showing people that is an option for you. And again,
you could probably work harder at it too.
Yeah, I mean, we know it's just facts that people are going to work harder for things that they love doing.
Right.
I mean, it's just human nature. If you like doing it, if you are rewarded in doing it, you're gonna work harder at it, and you're gonna be better at it, and you're gonna be recognized for it by yourself or others because you're better at it.
And you're gonna be contributing more, and you're gonna be helping people more, and you're gonna be bringing more joy to the world. You're gonna be better for your family. All the things.
So yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that we're both passionate about, and I have to throw this in because it is. Today's would have been Kobe Bryant's 42nd birthday. And if you know me very well, that he was my favorite basketball player, my favorite athlete, and who died recently in a helicopter accident. I mean, he was 42, that's 11 years older than me. And that's kind of what we're talking about, this whole No More Some Days thing is. The thing is, we want to live without putting our goals off. But the other thing is, one day it is going to be no more some days, because it's going to be over. And none of us know when that is going to be. Mm-hmm. So putting off, it's so easy to put things off. It's so easy to just, hey, I'm going to watch Netflix again tonight and I'll do whatever tomorrow. Yeah. It's so easy. But I think, as Christians, we believe that we have a higher calling. We have another life to prepare for. But I do think we're also supposed to, and we should try to live a fulfilling life here. Mm-hmm. And so let's all try to do that and encourage each other to do that. And I have so much respect for people who are trying to do that, whether it's people who are doing their side hustles, whether it's people who are struggling with small businesses, whether it's people who are going outside their family's expectations or what they thought they had to do. And we need more people like that who are trying to do things that they really love to do and are really bringing value to other people into the world. And the more people we can do that, the better we're all going to be. Yeah,
absolutely. So, yeah, I think that's all we had. Hopefully you can take something like a nugget from this week and really act on it, really do a small thing that is going to be, helping you get toward the goal that you want to get to, doing the work that you want to do, exploring. You don't have to have all the answers right now. That's okay. This is a great stage to be in, exploring, trying different things.
Yeah.
And you could be like, okay, no, that's not for me. And that's what this is there for. We don't stop exploring, or hopefully we don't stop exploring when we're children. Let's keep exploring our whole lives and be curious. And we would love it if you enjoyed this video, to share it with your friends, share it on Facebook, subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We are going to be having those social media accounts set up very soon, and we would love for you to follow us there as well. We'll be sharing those links with you as soon as they're available. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you all. Have a great week.
Bye.